And welcome into the show. It is Daniel Workman coming to you live from the Dream Imaginate Sports Studios. It is 9 a.m. on the East Coast. This is your 6 a.m. super early morning wake-up call in all time zones in between and around the world. Thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday, April the 7th. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you're staying safe, washing those hands, social distancing, etc., etc. Together, we'll get through this, hopefully sooner rather than later. I know everyone's lives have been interrupted during this process, but, it's a situation we're all working through together, and hopefully we get through it sooner rather than later. A lot of breaking news yesterday. Sports, on hold, but the sports world and the legal worlds collided yesterday in a couple of ways. Coming up after the break, we are going to have Zachary Zager on the show. He's going to come on to talk a little bit about what broke yesterday concerning Fox and World Cup broadcasting rights. And another story that broke yesterday as well in the New York Times from Tariq Panja and Kevin Draper. U.S. prosecutors say Qatar and Russia bribed FIFA officials. After years of investigations and indictments, the United States Department of Justice on Monday said for the first time that representatives working for Russia and Qatar had bribed former FIFA officials to secure hosting rights for soccer's World Cup. Prosecutors made the accusations in an indictment charging 3 media executives and a sports marketing company with a number of crimes, including wire fraud and money laundering in connection with bribes to secure television and marketing rights for international soccer tournaments. The accusations were the latest salvo in a years-long corruption case that has already produced convictions of numerous soccer officials and executives and depositions from former leaders of FIFA, soccer's world governing body. Never before, though, have prosecutors so clearly described the scheme that helped deliver the votes that gave Russia and Qatar hosting rights for one of the world's biggest sporting events. Now, just to refresh your memory, if you've forgotten, it was long speculated that the favorites for the 2018 and 2022 World Cup hosting rights were England and the United States, respectively. So there was a lot of belief that England were well positioned to host the World Cup in 2018 and the U.S. for 2022. And then out of nowhere, Russia and Qatar end up getting the rights. And those blatant moves really set off a lot of alarm bells or what have you. This has been ongoing for a while, and I don't think we're done. I think there's more to come. And I think this Fox News, which is a separate article that came out yesterday in terms of the Fox News indictments. I think that's just going to be more and more strings to pull, more trails to go down to find more information. The U.S. prosecutors on Monday explicitly revealed details about money paid to 5 members of FIFA's top board ahead of the 2010 vote that picked Russia and Qatar as hosts. Russia defeated England in joint bids from Holland, Belgium, and Spain, Portugal to host the tournament in 2018. Qatar, a tiny desert state that has spent billions of dollars to prepare for the 2022 World Cup, defeated the U.S. in a runoff by a group of voters that had already been trimmed because 2 members had been secretly filmed agreeing to sell their votes. 3 South American officials, according to the indictment, received payments to vote for Qatar. One of the officials, Julio Grondona of Argentina, died before he was accused of crimes in a 2015 indictment. Another, Nicolas Leoz, died in Paraguay last year while under house arrest and fighting extradition to the United States. The third man, Ricardo Teixeira, the former leader of soccer in Brazil, remains in that country, which does not have an extradition treaty with the United States. Sometimes your mouth just doesn't move when you want it to. Leos and Teixeira were indicted in 2015 on charges related to bribery schemes to sell lucrative soccer rights to sports broadcasters. The U.S. prosecutors also stated in Monday's indictment that the former soccer official Jack Warner of Trinidad and Tobago, who has been fighting extradition to the U.S. since 2015, received $5 million through a string of shell companies to vote for Russia. Some of the money, the indictment said, came from companies based in the United States that performed work on behalf of the 2018 Russia World Cup bid. Interesting. Like I said, keep pulling strings. More to come. Rafael Saguero, a Guatemalan soccer official who pleaded guilty in 2016 to money laundering and fraud charges in an earlier soccer indictment, received $1 million to give his vote to Russia, the indictment said. None of the former soccer officials were immediately available for comment. Officials at Russia's Soccer Federation and FIFA did not reply to an email sent after business hours to request comment. Qatar has long denied allegations of acting improperly and has faced a slew of accusations ever since it started bidding for soccer's biggest prize. A FIFA document alluded to the bribery scheme last year. The names of Grondona, Leos, and Teixeira and references to payments they received were included in an ethics document justifying a lifetime suspension of Teixeira. The allegations against the South Americans mirror those made by an Argentine television executive who turned state's witness after being named as a central figure in the soccer corruption case. He said at the New York trial of 3 other officials in 2017 that Leos, Grondona, and Teixeira had been paid to vote for Qatar. The votes for the 2 World Cups were heavily marred by accusations of corruption. More than half of the people involved, including the former FIFA president Sepp Blatter, have been accused of wrongdoing. The choice of Qatar, a place with such high temperatures that FIFA was required to move the World Cup to a cooler time of the year for the first time since the tournament debuted in 1930, received most of the attention after the votes. But Russia, too, has faced a number of allegations of improper bidding behavior. Russian officials told a FIFA panel that investigated its bid that they could not turn over computers used during the process to a FIFA investigator because they had all been destroyed. Imagine that. Last May, almost a year after Russia staged the World Cup, Gianni Infantino, who came out of relative obscurity to secure the FIFA presidency after the corruption scandal took down almost all of FIFA senior leadership, received the Order of Friendship Medal from President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia. We talked about it last week on the show. FIFA went after Trinidad and Tobago. Gianni Infantino. The headline is talking about Infantino's revenge. It certainly appears that although Sepp Blatter is gone, the corruption at FIFA continues under Infantino. And more, these doors are turning, these strings are being pulled, and people are going down, as they should. And that investigation needs to not just continue from stateside, it needs to continue stateside. And we're going to get into a little bit of this coming up shortly after the break with Zachary Zager, who's a lawyer who was talking about this yesterday as well on social media. So we're going to pick his brain and get his thoughts on what he's seeing so far with this Fox case. Look, the bottom line is the way things have been done within the game of soccer is a quid pro quo, money under the table. You do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. And it's gone on for a very, very long time. This isn't new. It's just that Russia and Qatar had gotten so big, so out of hand that it caused people to really take a re-examination. But this is kind of standard behavior. And quite frankly, when you look at the United States Soccer Federation, we had Chuck Blazer, before he passed away, was caught up in all of this. Chuck Blazer is responsible for U.S. Soccer's exemption from FIFA to not have to enforce promotion and relegation. Chuck Blazer preceded Sunil Gulati in the Exco seat with FIFA. Chuck Blazer heavily involved with CONCACAF. Jack Warner. You don't think all of these things are connected? That U.S. Soccer and all of its people are just completely oblivious to how things work? This Fox TV deal is troubling if you are involved with the federation, because it starts to get closer to home. You start to see smoke over the horizon. It's not necessarily across the ocean anymore. It might be just across the horizon. We need transparency. It's something we've talked about on this show for a long time, and it's long overdue. And I'm glad that the legal challenges continue to come and come for the game globally. We need things run properly. Good governance, transparency, things Carlos Cordero said he was going to do, didn't do. Now Cindy Cohn and Will Wilson have an opportunity to do it as well. We'll see what they do. But it's necessary. And it's necessary even if at this point it's just a preventative measure. Even if it's a proactive preventative measure to keep U.S. soccer afloat. To say, hey, we're going fully transparent. We cannot afford any more legal challenges. Let's get this stuff out in the open. Even for that reason, it's a good idea. Our sponsor this half hour is Ductig Brand, DUKTIG brand.com. If you haven't taken a moment, go there today. DUKTIG brand, DuctigBrand.com. Check them out. And when you find something you like, maybe it's a t-shirt, maybe it's a notebook, all soccer specific stuff here. It's really good stuff, especially if you're at home and you're trying to figure out how to get back on the field and making notes and working on things. This is the place you need to go right now. DuctigBrand.com. Use promo code DWShow. You'll get 10% off of your order when you place that order today. 10% off when you place that order today. DWShow. We'll be right back after this. Thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday, April the 7th. A lot going on, even though we didn't think it was going to be going on yesterday, but all kinds of news broke, as we talked about at the top of the show. The Qatar and Russia FIFA bribes and all of that's going on, but there's something else going on as well, and we have Zach Zager. He is a senior reporter for Law 360. They cover sports and betting legal issues, and we'd like to welcome Zach to the show. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Yesterday, all kinds of news is breaking. One of those stories that broke concerns Fox. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you uncovered and what you're seeing so far with the indictments?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a surprise yesterday to hear that new indictments were going to be unveiled. We had known that the prosecutor's office in Brooklyn had continued their investigation and that they were still looking into this. But, they say that often and you don't know where it's going to lead. But yesterday we received word that they were going to unveil new indictments, which they did. And interesting part of that is they named two former Fox executives working in Latin America as defendants here, charging them with wire fraud and wire fraud conspiracy for allegedly participating in a conspiracy to pay bribes to secure rights to the Copa Libertadores tournament in South America. Interesting part about that is a part of their scheme is that they are alleged to have used their relationships with all these individuals in the conspiracy to obtain some confidential bidding information on the World Cup rights. And as we all know, Fox eventually went on to win those World Cup rights for 2018 and 2022. So it does, raise some controversy around the awarding of those rights. And Fox, of course, has now extended their rights through 2026. So we'll see what happens with that. But this is the first time we've seen criminal allegations against Fox or Fox executives in this widespread and still ongoing probe.
So in terms of the specific indictments with the individuals or companies that were involved, what were the specifics that you can see so far in terms of what they were accused of? Was it specific to television rights? Was it specific to how they obtained the information for the television rights? What were you able to uncover with that?
Yeah. Well, first off, the indictment does name them, but the allegations contained in the indictment pertaining to them are very short. They're in one or two sections of the indictment, along with allegations against a number of other individuals. But what they're alleged to have done is participated in this broad conspiracy with a number of other officials and sports marketing executives that have already been named in prior indictments to pay bribes to South American soccer officials part of CONMEBOL, representatives of the individual soccer playing nations in South America, to secure television and marketing rights to the Copa Libertadores tournament. So that's where their involvement is in this broader corruption, so to speak, is this Copa Libertadores tournament. But in that, prosecutors say they were able to leverage their relationships with the other individuals in the conspiracy, and in particular with one unnamed co-conspirator, who was alleged to have handed them over some confidential information about the bidding for the World Cup television rights. And then they were able to use that and some other unspecific information to help further Fox's business interests in soccer. And these two individuals worked for two Latin American arms of Fox Broadcasting, but it does pull Fox into this whole mess. We've already seen some civil allegations against Fox from some others. They've always been like kind of tangentially related to this, but this kind of pulls some direct allegations with some individuals associated with Fox into this broader corruption scheme.
Before we get into the what could happen type of situation, I first want to ask you about the possible connections here. So you've talked about Copa Libertadores, but and you've talked about getting confidential information for the negotiations for FIFA World Cup. Is there any indication that there is or could be related to Fox a harder look at all of their soccer properties, how they were obtained, and that would include obviously the World Cup. Recently, they had the UEFA Champions League until they lost it to Turner, and then obviously they have contracts with the U.S. Soccer Federation through Soccer United Marketing for national team domestic matches, as well as some other TV properties, including Major League Soccer. So how involved, I guess, when you pull one string, is it possible that they are going down, these investigators are going down kind of the entire list of soccer properties within Fox to see what else they uncover?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's hard for me to say at this point, exactly what other deals could be implicated here, if any. But what I can say is that we've seen two things so far in this investigation. One is it's still focused on Latin America, South America, and Central America, and the broadcasting rights for the tournaments, in those areas. So we haven't seen a lot of allegations going beyond that, except tied to the World Cup and hosting within FIFA. But so right now, the focus of the investigation continues to be on this side of the planet, so to speak. But the other thing we need to watch out for, and I think Fox is probably already watching out for, and so are all of the other companies that do business in global soccer, is that prosecutors are continuing this investigation, and the way they work on these types of corruption investigations, and from what we've seen so far, just in this, the way this particular investigation has expanded is, they indict some individuals, then they're able to get some individuals to cooperate. They're able to get other cooperators, which then leads them to other individuals, which then leads them to other cooperators, and they slowly continue to build out the investigation in that way. And so we had seen the investigation grow, and I wasn't necessarily expecting it to go further, even though they said that they were still pursuing it. But now that we've seen some new allegations come out, I wouldn't expect this to be the last set of allegations. So I'm sure all the companies are going to be looking at the conduct of all their individuals in all these deals. And so it's very possible that we could see more allegations related to other deals within soccer, whether it be for television rights or marketing rights, or whether it just be for hosting rights for tournaments. But yeah, what the big takeaway here is that the investigation is still continuing to grow. So I would be on high alert for more allegations and new potential defendants.
In terms of let's kind of zoom out for just a second out of Fox. This is more of a kind of a what you were just talking through, which is where this thing could go, connecting dots, rolling over witnesses to roll over on others, etc. When you zoom out of this one case and you look at international football, international soccer, and all of the legal things that have been taking place for quite a while. It started under the Obama administration. It's continued under the Trump administration with all of these investigations and indictments. And it seems like, with every string we pull, there's more strings to pull, that we're certainly not at the end of the process. When we think something's died down, then all of a sudden this comes out, and then the other news of the day yesterday with the indictments and accusations from the FBI concerning the Qatar and Russia, hosting rights and bids, etc. So when we look at this on a macro level, we have not seen much in terms of within the United States, U.S. companies, U.S. individuals. The closest connection to the United States Soccer Federation, the national governing body for the sport, was Chuck Blazer, who passed away after being indicted as part of this whole scandal, but was well known for doing the bidding and the work of the federation within CONCACAF and FIFA. It was his work that secured an exemption from FIFA in regards to the United States not having to implement promotion and relegation, and that deal is what was cited in a recent Court of Arbitration and Sport case brought against the federation. It was that deal that FIFA cited and U.S. Soccer cited as their defense as to why the Court of Arbitration and Sport didn't have to enforce the rule. They basically said FIFA can do whatever they want in that regard, and they've granted U.S. Soccer an exemption, even though it's not written. It's acknowledged in these 2007 minutes of a FIFA meeting, and therefore, sorry, you lose, kind of is basically what happened in that case. But on a macro level, what I'm curious about is how much, as this stuff keeps digging, how much longer is it that U.S. Soccer is able to completely stay out of the fray? Or do you think at some point they might too be in trouble in terms of how this stuff is continuing to be dug into? Or are they just, have you seen anything that says there might be a little smoke here that the FBI needs to be searching into themselves?
As far as I can, what I can say on that is I don't have any specifics on what U.S. Soccer's involvement could be, but I am sure, and they are looking hard at all of the conduct of their individuals, and they've probably conducted a number of internal reviews to determine what their potential exposure to criminal charges is. Of course, we've seen U.S. Soccer has had a lot of changeover in leadership in recent years, and they're dealing with a lot of other issues on the domestic front as far as an ongoing lawsuit with the U.S. women's national team players. But right now, it's tough to say. But like I said before, it does seem that prosecutors are slowly broadening this investigation, and bringing charges against these two Fox executives, in my opinion, suggests that that they are moving closer to the United States, so to speak. So there is a possibility we could see more charges related directly to what U.S. Soccer or what companies in the United States have done specifically in regards to this investigation. But I still think it's a little too early to tell at this point. I guess the other thing with this whole corruption investigation is that there's been wide speculation that global soccer is corrupt, and that these types of criminal activity has been going on for decades. So, it would not surprise me if we saw more charges, but, it's tough to say anything specific at this point in time.
So from a process standpoint, to kind of speak to something that I think you can walk us through or give us an idea of, from a process standpoint, walk us through timelines of these types of investigations and how they actually work in terms of it seems to me from what I've read and looked at this, and I'm not a lawyer, so I have I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so I can't claim that either. Although at this point, I don't know that anybody's staying at a Holiday Inn. But in terms of the process and how the investigations go procedurally, they're not necessarily linear, right? I mean, you go down, you chase down a clue, you track, and then you see where it leads, but it's not necessarily as if, okay, we got these two guys, it directly leads to this, to this, to this. It's sometimes roundabout and it takes time. When you're going through investigations like this, we've already seen this thing has lasted more than, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe longer. And it's continuing on with more indictments, and we're continuing to see different strings pulled. Is this more of like a spider web type of investigation, and what kind of timelines do you see with these kind of racketeering and other charges that have been coming out in terms of the process, the timeline wise for that as well?
Yeah, so I think you're right. It is sort of like a web. The way I picture it is if you take an individual, a defendant's face, and you put a circle, and then you have spokes coming out of that circle, and that connects them to other people, and then that person has other spokes, and then sometimes the spokes connect back to somebody else that's already been, been connected to another individual. So it kind of builds out that in like a web kind of way, and it does take time because prosecutors will bring these allegations. They can they bring them in secret at first before grand jury. The grand jury then will determine, and that's a group of individuals to meet in secret. They look at the evidence, and then they determine whether there's sufficient evidence to bring an actual formal indictment, and that's what we had here. So we had a grand jury formally. This is a formal grand jury indictment of these individuals. So those allegations have already met an initial level of the prosecutors have already met some initial burden of proof here, or at least allegations showing that there could be a crime here. But yeah, it does take time because once you have an individual that's been caught into this web, generally, investigators will try to turn them if they think that person can lead them to further individuals and continue to grow that web, particularly if that individual can tie them to bigger fish, so to speak. So if they can bring in even bigger, more high-profile defendants, then they'll give them that, and then they usually work out some sort of deal, whether it be a non-prosecution agreement or an agreement to recommend lenient sentencing, and so then you have attorneys involved in negotiating that deal. So these can all take time, and what we saw from the first trial was a key cooperator was Alejandro Brazaco, who was a South American soccer marketing executive, and he ended up turning himself in after the arrests in Zurich in 2015, and he was the key witness that tied all of it together and was able to bring in some more individuals in the second and third indictments that we saw in this investigation. So. And that was between May 2015 to December 2017. We saw the first trial, and then now December 2017 till now, it's taken that long to bring this fifth superseding indictment. So it does take a matter of years for this to grow. So it is a long, intensive process, and we've seen that. We generally see that with other investigations, but like I said, that things are still ongoing. So they're probably still working on trying to turn more individuals now as we speak, and we'll see if this indictment leads to some other people maybe turning themselves in or deciding to cooperate. So sometimes it can be it can move in spurts. Like that. So we'll see if something that comes out in the coming months, if there's another broader indictment. And I would like to add too, both Fox Soccer and marketing executives, their attorneys are denying the charges, so you expect them to plead not guilty. And it's hard to say right now whether they have any reason to cooperate or not, but they are denying the charges. So we'll see what happens with them. But like I said, it can move in spurts. So that we could see another superseding indictment come down in a matter of a few months.
So looking at where we are in this process, is it your opinion nowhere near the end? Why is it, just for the audience? Why is it? Can you explain to the audience why it is the United States that is able to do this and not other countries around the world?
Yeah, I mean, well, the prosecutors in New York, both the Southern District and the Eastern District, really view their jurisdiction broadly. And they can do that because New York is home to so much international business. And all they need is some sort of wire transfer or some sort of transaction that happens either going through banks that are in New York or really, it doesn't take too much activity within the United States for the United States to assert its jurisdiction over these matters. And when the Department of Justice does decide to go into an area like this and to conduct an investigation, they're always sure to find information that can bring that connection to the United States. But of course, these things do have a huge impact. Soccer may still not be the biggest sport in the United States, but there's a lot of money in the United States being spent on soccer. We see television rights, millions of dollars spent on it, and it is a growing sport. So and how this investigation really started was the United States lost out on the World Cup hosting rights to their bid lost to Qatar for the 2022 World Cup. So you can see that there is an impact here in the United States. So, and like I said, prosecutors in New York especially really try to go out and go after these broader global corruption schemes, and they like to think of themselves as being sort of I don't want to say like a world police, but where they can go after global corruption and the individuals that are responsible for doing that. So I'm not surprised to see them take on something like this. And the other thing, too, is to go back to what you mentioned about whether or not we would see more U.S. defendants. Of course, it's much easier for them to bring charges against U.S. defendants. It's much easier for them to apprehend the defendants and easier to connect whatever criminal activity is to the United States. So in that sense, that the fact that they haven't brought more charges, could be that they don't have evidence yet to do so, but we'll see.
Well, it's been rumored in the past for several years that there were some Americans that were caught up in this and immunity deals to basically help the investigations. That's been whispered and rumored throughout the Federation for a while, that there are some in high profile positions that received immunity deals in exchange for rolling over on others. So, I don't know, that maybe that's part of it. Maybe that really did play out, or maybe they've just been really good so far at covering their tracks, and we'll see how long that lasts. I find it hard to believe that all of this stuff is going down, and with Chuck Blazer's involvement in it, that it just stopped with Chuck, that there wasn't some other connections taking place somewhere in the United States with individuals or companies as a result. So, it'll be interesting to follow, an interesting process that is still underway and looks like it will be underway for quite some time. And as much as we would love to hit the fast forward button, we can't pass these commercials. We're just gonna have to wait it out and see what happens. Zach, thanks for coming on the show. How can people follow your work and follow your reporting and keep up with the stories that you're covering?
Yeah, I write for Law 360. It's a legal news website. So check me out there, and also on my Twitter account at Zach Zagger, ZachZagger. I'm usually posting about some breaking developments and some of the stories that I'm working on. So check me out there.
Zach, thanks for hopping on the show today. Thanks for covering this and kind of walking us through some of these procedures, the individuals involved, etc. For those of us who didn't stay in a Holiday Inn or go to law school, it's helpful to have people on that are much smarter than us in these legal issues to explain what's really going on. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is Zach Zagger of Law 360. Check him out on Twitter, as he said, at Zach Zagger, to follow more breaking news and stories that he's covering. We'll be right back after this word from Charity Water. Charity Water is an organization that's doing incredible work, even in the midst of this pandemic plaguing the world. They're providing clean drinking water that helps people and communities stay disease-free, and they do it with 100% of your donations going to the cause. It doesn't pay for their staff, doesn't pay for their offices. They raise all that money separately. All the money you give goes directly into the ground to bring up clean water and do other initiatives in these villages. It's an incredible organization. I encourage you to be a part of it today at charitywater.org. We'll be right back after this.
No one, no man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Or you could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.
Show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Zach Zagger for joining us today to give us a little insight on those indictments that broke yesterday. In related news, this was published in June 2017 on adage.com. Inquiry: FIFA gave World Cup rights to Fox in order to dodge lawsuit. And I want to revisit this article to go into a little bit more of what we were just talking about in regards to Fox and these indictments. Whether through rank incompetence or sheer corruption, when FIFA awarded Qatar the rights to host the 2022 World Cup, it effectively cost itself millions in future TV fees and all but guaranteed that Fox and Telemundo would both make a tidy profit on the 2026 tournament. In a document released today, International Soccer's governing body effectively owned up to the fact that it all but gave away the rights to the 2026 World Cup to avoid getting dragged into court by Fox. An inquiry into the bidding for the hosting rights to the 2018 and 2022 World Cup, FIFA's 353-page doorstep offers some insight into the events of February 2015 when it extended its U.S. TV deals with Fox and Telemundo in a closed auction. At the time, it was suspected that FIFA had granted the extensions at a bargain rate in order to mollify Fox, which was furious that the choice of Qatar as the host nation would necessitate shifting the 2022 World Cup from the summer to the fall. As it turns out, FIFA's generosity was actually a profligate means of sidestepping an even more expensive legal entanglement. Now, keep all this in mind in regards to what we just learned. Fox executives have now been indicted for being a part of these bribery scandals with votes concerning South American tournaments and CONMEBOL, but also going back to TV hosting rights, etc. I think the strings that are getting pulled here, this next part of the web in the investigations, is going to be involving Fox. And whatever FIFA was hoping to avoid with Fox in terms of lawsuits, it appears that it's coming back to bite both FIFA and Fox here in the near future. Continuing, some issues. On page 293 of the document, former FIFA Ethics Committee Chairman Michael J. Garcia notes that the likelihood of having to reschedule the 2022 World Cup, the average summer temperature in Qatar is a scalding 106 degrees Fahrenheit, proved to be a bone of contention for Fox and Telemundo. The TV partners in the USA did have some issues, as there would be a clash with the American football season. And we talk about how, like, that's a big deal in American sports. It's a big deal because that is the biggest TV commercial rights property in America, the NFL. But it's not just the NFL. College football is massive as well. Way bigger than the pennies they spend on soccer, and way more than like by a factor of 3x of what goes into the NBA, and a factor that is about 2x of what goes into Major League Baseball. So when you look at this situation for Fox, it is huge, because everything at Fox, I've talked to people who work at Fox, and they'll all tell you that American football is the holy grail. That is the untouchable. The fact that was being threatened here or touched by moving this to Qatar and into the winter to try to get the temperatures down a few degrees was a big issue for Fox. They were not going to be happy with what they viewed as interference into their holy grail, the American football properties that they control. In other words, Fox agreed to not drag FIFA into court in exchange for the extension, which was signed over at a fraction of the original $425 million contract. So Fox basically threatens a bunch of legal action. I'm sure that had to include, nod, wink, wink, look the other way. We'll get the FBI. We know some things. We'll get the FBI involved. You don't want the FBI involved. I'm sure it had to have some allusions to that somewhere. That initial package includes the 2015 and 2019 Women's World Cup and the 2018 and 2022 Men's Tournament. If things go according to plan and North America wins the right to host the 2026 World Cup, Fox will pay FIFA an undisclosed bonus fee. The document released today quotes FIFA Secretary General Jerome Valcke telling the investigatory board that in exchange for Fox's willingness to accept a rescheduling of the 2026 World Cup, we agreed that we will extend with Fox for the same price as what they pay for 2022 plus inflation costs. Even with the bonus outlay, the extension likely will be worth every penny. Not only will Fox enjoy a huge rating spike if the 2026 World Cup is held in its own backyard, and at the time this had not been confirmed or awarded, which we now know has happened. And during the U.S. soccer presidential election that occurred in February 2018, it was a done deal. FIFA had basically told everyone, like, it's going to happen in the U.S. We can't put this off anymore. Like, the heat's too hot on us. And that's why when Carlos was going around telling the Athlete Council, you got to have me to get the 2026 World Cup, and they believed him, that's their own fault, because it was coming to America no matter what. And that was a line he was using with voters, but it was not true that he was the only one that could get it across the line or that it was even in jeopardy. It was coming to the U.S. no matter what. So that was just that was so laughable. Fox, not only will Fox enjoy a huge rating spike if the 2026 World Cup is held in its own backyard, but it's going to have a lot more ad inventory to sell. In keeping with the expansion of the field from 32 to 46 teams, the number of World Cup matches Fox will broadcast in 2026 will jump 25% from 64 to 80. The extra games must have Fox and Telemundo ad sales execs dreaming of a soccer windfall. ESPN scared up around $530 million in ad revenue with its coverage of the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, and even the most elementary apples to Albiol's comparison would suggest that Fox alone could walk away from the 26 confab having collected more than $675 million in sales. Now, keep in mind that they basically spent to get these rights less than $425 million. According to this, that Fox had agreed not to drag FIFA into court in exchange for the extension, which was signed over at a fraction of the original $425 million contract. So you're talking about the opportunity here to be looking at what, $400-500 million off of this one event that they could make net profit, gross profit. For its part, FIFA acknowledged that having to juggle the Qatar schedule will cost it dearly. As Valky says in the report, by rescheduling the World Cup, we are losing money, and we are making less money because we are not running an open bidding process in the U.S. market. And we just extend with Fox for the same amount of money. Hello. Transparency, open bidding. Guess what? The U.S. Soccer Federation does not have an open bidding policy, transparency policy. It does not exist when it comes to their negotiations for TV and marketing rights. It doesn't exist. You think that's a problem? Of course it is. Football versus football. That FIFA never really thought that the whole summer in Qatar angle would be mildly amusing if it didn't imply that the oil-rich nation had to have bribed its way into winning the bid. On page 294, Garcia notes that it appears, quote, it appears there was a failure to consider the issue of the temperature in Qatar properly prior to the vote to award hosting rights, end quote, which is the dessert soccer version of Captain Louis Renault exclaiming that he is shocked to find that gambling is going on at Rick's Cafe. Excuse me, the desert soccer version. The medically mandated shift from summer to fall presents Fox with a scheduling conflict. as several World Cup matches are likely to interfere with its megabucks NFL broadcasts. And while Fox can move games that bump up against football to its FS1 cable outpost, there's no way to avoid a conflict when the final match kicks off unless FIFA moves it from its traditional Sunday slot. At any rate, for all the shadiness to be found in the FIFA inquiry, it is ultimately neither an admission of wrongdoing nor a smoking gun. Long suppressed, the report itself has been instrumental in the removal of a number of bad actors from the organization. But if the inquiry doesn't prove that the rights to the 2022 World Cup were negotiated by bagmen and crooks, the sheer sleaziness of FIFA culture is hard to miss. The Garcia report essentially brushes off the story about an anonymous £2 million deposit that landed in the bank account of the 10-year-old daughter of a former FIFA higher-up, suggesting that the transfer was more tax dodge rather than bribe. Of particular interest to stateside soccer fans, a separate document released today clears the U.S. Soccer Federation of any malfeasance in its bid for the 2022 World Cup. After progressing through 3 rounds of bidding where it outlasted the likes of Japan, Korea, and Australia, the U.S. lost the final round at Qatar by a tally of 14 votes to 8. We know now, this was in 2017, we know now a few things. Number one, the FIFA inquiries have continued. And as news broke yesterday, Qatar and Russia were done with dirty dealings per the indictments. We know that Fox is involved on some level, and there is more to come. That's what we know. And that's the trail we should follow, and we shouldn't stop until we know the truth. And it's time. I say this so much. I said it earlier in the show. I'm going to say it right now. If anyone from U.S. Soccer, whether you are a state association, whether you work at U.S. Soccer, whether you are on the board of directors at U.S. Soccer, it is important for the future of the sport to get the governance and transparency policies, the conflicts of interest policies, so updated and secure to prevent the Federation from getting dragged into this and destroyed in the end. Proactivity is required. Even if the Federation is clean, it could and should do more to set an example for all of its members as well as for the members around the world of what proper governance should look like. And every day that doesn't happen leads to more speculation and more doubt that those involved at the very, very top are not looking out for the best interest of everyone. Because your board minutes are not out in the open. You do so much work in it. Executive session as to avoid people on record. Votes are not made public. There's no accountability and transparency here. And, you can make the argument, but it's just not happening. And that is a major, major issue going forward that it needs to get fixed. It needs to get fixed. They need to be proactive, and they need to implement these policies. And state associations and board members, athlete council members, federation members have a fiduciary duty and an obligation to protect the sport here in this country. This fire is about to get more hot within the U.S. because if the lights and the intensity is turned up at Fox, there's going to be more that comes out. Be assured, there's going to be more, and it's going to keep coming. It's not going away. That is our show for today. Thanks to Zach Zager for joining the show. Appreciate it as always. Hope you have a great day. Stay safe out there. We'll see everyone again tomorrow, same time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Goodbye.